Hi guys, Bryce here with Black Widow Fishing. Today we have 5 more video questions, so let's get right into it. Our first question is, how can fishing equipment be safely packed to be able to fly with? Fishing equipment can be packed in a number of ways. The most common way is probably to use a hard case, or sometimes known as a rocket tube. It's basically just a long cylinder tube that will fit your fishing rod and sometimes your fishing reel inside there, and then you can pack your other equipment like your lures and stuff just in a maybe a hard case. It's probably the most preferable one inside your suitcase. There are other options such as soft cases that you could carry on if it's not too large, but I wouldn't recommend those unless you have a 2-piece pole or a telescopic pole that actually goes down really small. There are several different ones. I'll link some down in the description below. Our next question is, do people regularly get fishing hooks stuck in their skin, or is it a relatively low occurrence? Well, this is a really tough question to answer, mainly because there's no actual reporting of when you get a hook stuck in your skin, unless you're going to the hospital. And then even then, it's probably hard to actually get a true grasp of how much it happens. But I will break this down into 2 different categories. I would say the first one is the category of where you're just simply pricking your finger with a fishing hook versus you're actually getting it stuck or embedded in your skin that requires either tools or a trip to the doctor's office to get it out. So that first category with getting it just a simple prick, I believe that happens all the time and it's very common. Now, as far as actually getting hooks stuck in your skin or embedded in your skin, I'm not sure how common that actually is. I've been fishing for well over 25 years and I have never had that happen to me. I've had to get stuck in my clothes, but not my skin. There are people though that do get it stuck in their skin, as you can see here and here. And it does happen often. So I would say unless that people are actually big in the social media and sharing that, then our grasp of being able to tell how often that happens is really low. Our next question is, are bluegill worth keeping and eating? That really depends on what kind of angling you like to do and what kind of fish you like to eat. The bluegill, I believe, are part of the sunfish category, same as bass or even a sunfish. Crappie, I believe, is part of that too. I'm not a fish expert and I'm certainly not a biologist, so I don't know. But I believe that's to be accurate. My younger years when I was growing up, that's all we really caught were bluegill, sunfish, and crappie, and we ate them all the time. They're really nice to fry up whole, delicious. So I personally would keep them if I caught them. But for the average person who's looking for a nice, mild, white-fleshed fish to enjoy, then yes, I definitely think bluegill is on top of that list. Our next question is, what is the difference between a fishing kayak and a regular kayak, and can you use either to do both? That is a question that we kind of have to break down. So there's no right or wrong answer, but I will give my opinion based on my experience with both these types of kayaks. So right off the bat, I would say that a true fishing kayak is going to be a sit on top kayak, and we kind of covered the difference between a sit in kayak and a sit on top kayak. I do use a Hobie Pro Angler, so mine is definitely a true sit on top kayak. I do believe that there are some sit in kayaks such as Field and Stream, which is Dick's, and some of the lower Ascend kayaks that I believe are Bass Pro Shops. They are sit-in kayaks, but they are kind of geared more towards fishing with rod holders. So you technically could use those, but for all intents and purposes, I kind of just exclude those from fishing kayaks all around. They're really small. You can't really take any real equipment unless you're just a one man, one lure, one rod kind of guy. They're easy to get into the sport and see if you like it, but as far as being, true fishing kayaks, I would say no. And then when you come to your true sit-in kayaks, those definitely are not used for fishing, and I don't believe that they could really be used, mainly because there's nowhere to store anything. You really don't have too much mobility, and they are more designed to roll. So go under the water and come back up, barrel rolls, I believe they're called. So I think that those could not be used. Now, when it comes to fishing kayaks, obviously you can use those for fishing, but I would say that they are not necessarily the best type of kayak, depending on what kind of kayak you get to use as regular kayaking. So like the Hobie Pro Angler, I would not use that as a regular kayak, and by that I mean with a paddle. You could pedal that thing around all day, and it might be even easier if you don't have all your fishing equipment on there because it'll be lighter. I think once you start getting into the motors, you're no longer looking at a kayak or a regular have fun kayak. But on the flip side, I think something like a Hobie Compass is a perfect kayak that can be used for fishing, for maybe our beginner anglers, or or just our plain basic weekend anglers. And it could also be used as a recreation kayak. And what's really great about Hobie, since they do a lot of sailing stuff, they include a mast where you could actually add a sail on there as well. So it could really or I guess it would be really triple. It could really triple as 3 different things. But like your Jackson Big Rigs, your Hobie Pro Anglers, I don't think that those are the best suited for regular kayaking, mainly because they're big, they're not as maneuverable, and you're gonna expend a lot more energy versus using one that's more geared towards actual recreation kayaking. And our final question is, who or what is required to be considered a professional angler or fisherman? So again, it all depends on the situation. I think when you say fisherman, at least when you're asking that question, I think that at least for me, the immediate reference goes to, like fishermen and crabbers up in Alaska. Don't consider that to be angling, and I don't think that actually falls within the definition of angling. Angling, more so sport fishing, I think that there are several different routes that you can take to be considered a professional. And when it comes down to anybody who has the passion, the drive, and the determination can be a professional angler. Now, when it comes to being a professional angler, what actually constitutes that? There's no steadfast rule. If you want to call yourself a professional angler and you go out and you just fish on the weekends, by all means, more power to you. But if you're going to go by my definition of what I consider professional, it's somebody who makes money within the fishing industry. Now, having said that, that does not mean that you have to be a tournament angler. A tournament angler is just one of those avenues where you can get into professional fishing or professional angling. So that's one option, but with that, you're going to have a lot of expenses, and if you don't win, you're not going to make any money. Unless, of course, you have some really good and lucrative sponsorship deals, which I think is a whole nother separate avenue to be a professional angler. And those would be, our sponsored anglers, mainly the guys you see on the Bass Pro Tour or the MLF or the Elite Series and so on and so forth. Those guys are professional anglers. Not only do they make money actually in the tournaments, but they have sponsors, and they have a couple other ways to make money as well, which I'm going to discuss right here. The other option is you could do educational videos. I consider that to be professional angling. There are some revenue streams that you can generate out of that. You could be a vlogger and make money that way. Without ever actually having to take a sponsorship deal. You could monetize your YouTube channel. You could do affiliate marketing, product reviews. You could work at a store like Fisherman's Warehouse here in Sacramento area. You could be a guide. There are just so many different avenues to be a professional angler if that's what you wanted to do. And I think the real misnomer comes down to is that all professional anglers have to be tournament anglers. And that's truly what I thought, probably up until just a few years ago, to where I realized, hey, I can actually be an angler, make money, and don't have to necessarily fish the tournaments. I fish the tournaments because I love it. So if there are any questions specific about what getting into these things entails, go ahead and leave me a comment below, and I'll go ahead and address those either in another video or I'll just respond directly to you. So if you enjoyed the questions today with our answers, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're at 44 subscribers. We need 6 more before we get to 50 and we can send out that Black Widow adult humor sticker pack. And then we need to get to 100 before we send out our free Monster Bass box that we have. If you liked the video, like I said, like and subscribe. Catch you next time.